Isabella Martinez stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her wedding veil for the 100th time. The white lace cascaded down her shoulders like a waterfall of dreams. She had waited 28 years for this moment. Her hands trembled slightly as she touched the pearl necklace her grandmother had worn on her wedding day 50 years ago. The old church bells of St. Augustine's Cathedral rang in the distance, announcing that in just 1 hour, she would become Mrs. Isabella Romano. Marco Romano paced nervously in the groom's suite, his best man Tony trying to calm him down. Marco had built his life carefully, brick by brick, creating a successful construction company that now employed over 200 people in Miami. What Isabella didn't know was that beneath the legitimate business facade, Marco carried secrets that could destroy everything they had built together. The cathedral was decorated with thousands of white roses and baby's breath. Isabella's mother, Carmen, fussed over every detail, making sure each bough was perfectly tied to the pews. 300 guests had arrived from all over the country. Isabella's father, a respected judge in the community, greeted each guest with pride. The Martinez family had deep roots in Miami, known for their charitable work and community service. As Isabella's bridesmaids helped her into the limousine, she felt a strange flutter in her stomach. She had known Marco for 3 years, meeting him at a charity gala her parents had organized. He was charming, successful, and treated her like a queen. Their courtship had been like a fairy tale. Romantic dinners overlooking the ocean, surprise trips to Paris, and flowers delivered to her office every Friday without fail. Marco checked his phone one last time before heading to the cathedral. A message from his uncle Vincent made his blood run cold. "They know. Get out now." But Marco couldn't leave. Not today. Not when Isabella was about to walk down the aisle toward him. He deleted the message and straightened his bow tie. Whatever was coming, he would face it after the ceremony. The church was packed. Isabella's college friends sat on the left side, whispering excitedly about how beautiful everything looked. Marco's side was filled with his business associates, though Isabella had always wondered why his family section seemed so sparse. He had told her his parents died when he was young, raised by a distant uncle who couldn't make it to the wedding due to health issues. Father O'Brien stood at the altar, his wise eyes scanning the crowd. He had known Isabella since she was baptized in this very church. Something felt different today, though he couldn't quite place what it was. Perhaps it was the way some of Marco's guests kept checking the exits, or how they sat rigid in their seats instead of relaxing into the joyful atmosphere. The wedding march began, and everyone rose to their feet. Isabella appeared at the entrance, her arm linked with her father's. She was radiant, her dark hair swept up in an elegant bun, her grandmother's veil flowing behind her. Her dress was simple yet stunning, a fitted bodice with delicate beading that caught the light from the stained glass windows. Marco's breath caught in his throat when he saw her. For a moment, all his worries disappeared. This woman, this angel walking toward him, had chosen him despite everything. She didn't know about the Romano crime family. She didn't know that his construction company was built with blood money. She didn't know that by marrying him, she was entering a world she could never have imagined. As Isabella reached the altar, she handed her bouquet to her maid of honor, Sophia. Marco took her hands in his, and they were surprisingly steady now. Father O'Brien began the ceremony, his voice echoing through the cathedral. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Isabella and Marco." Just as Father O'Brien asked if anyone had any objections, the massive wooden doors of the cathedral burst open. 20 FBI agents in full tactical gear stormed in, weapons drawn. "Nobody move! This is a federal raid." The lead agent's voice boomed through the sacred space. Screams erupted from the guests. Some tried to run but were quickly blocked by agents at every exit. Isabella stood frozen, her hands still in Marco's, unable to comprehend what was happening. Her perfect wedding day was crumbling before her eyes like a house of cards in a hurricane. "Marco Romano, you're under arrest for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder," the lead agent announced, moving toward the altar. Marco's grip on Isabella's hands tightened. He looked into her eyes, seeing confusion, fear, and the beginning of heartbreak. "I'm sorry," he whispered to her. "I'm so sorry, my love." Isabella's father jumped up from his pew. "There must be some mistake. This is my daughter's wedding." But the FBI agents were already separating the guests, identifying and arresting several of Marco's associates. Tony, the best man, was in handcuffs. Several men from Marco's side of the church tried to resist and were quickly subdued. The lead agent, Special Agent Jennifer Walsh, approached the altar with a strange mix of professionalism and sympathy. She had been tracking the Romano family for 5 years. Marco was supposed to be the clean one, the nephew who went legitimate, but their investigation had uncovered his deep involvement in the family's operations. "Miss Martinez," Agent Walsh said gently, "I need you to step away from Mr. Romano." Isabella's legs felt like jelly. This couldn't be real. This had to be some horrible nightmare. She would wake up any moment in her bridal suite, and everything would be fine. But the cold metal click of handcuffs on Marco's wrists was all too real. "Isabella, listen to me," Marco said urgently as agents began to lead him away. "Everything I felt for you was real. Every moment, every word of love, all real. I tried to leave that life behind. I wanted to be the man you thought I was." Tears streamed down Isabella's face, cutting through her carefully applied makeup. Her mother rushed to her side, wrapping her arms around her daughter as she collapsed to her knees, the wedding dress pooling around her like spilled milk. The scene was chaos. Photographers who had been hired to capture the joy of the day were now documenting a crime scene. Some guests were being questioned. Others were being arrested. Isabella's friends huddled together in shock, unsure whether to comfort her or flee the scene. Agent Walsh knelt beside Isabella. "Miss Martinez, I know this is devastating, but we need to speak with you. We have reason to believe your life might be in danger." Isabella looked up through her tears. "In danger? What are you talking about?" "The Romano family has enemies. Now that Marco has been arrested, and you're publicly connected to him, you could become a target. We need to put you in protective custody." Isabella's father, Judge Martinez, stepped forward. "Agent Walsh, I'm Judge Robert Martinez. What exactly is my daughter's fiancé accused of?" Agent Walsh stood, maintaining her professional composure despite the surreal setting. "Your Honor, Marco Romano is the nephew of Vincent Romano, head of one of Miami's most dangerous crime families. Our investigation indicates that Marco's construction company has been a front for laundering money from drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and extortion. We have evidence linking him to at least 3 murders of rival family members." Isabella felt the world spinning. The man she loved, the man she was about to pledge her life to, was a killer? A criminal? Every memory suddenly took on a sinister cast. His late-night phone calls, he said, were from job sites. The business trips he couldn't fully explain. The way certain people seemed afraid when they recognized him. As Marco was led out of the cathedral, he turned back one last time. His eyes met Isabella's across the chaos. In them, she saw not the hardened criminal the FBI described, but the man who had held her when her grandmother died, who had spent hours helping her practice for her bar exam, who had proposed to her on a moonlit beach with tears in his eyes. The cathedral, once filled with the promise of joy and new beginnings, was now a crime scene. Yellow tape was being strung across pews. Evidence was being collected. The wedding cake sat untouched in the reception hall next door, a monument to dreams destroyed. Isabella's bridesmaid Sophia helped her to her feet. "Come on, honey. Let's get you out of here." But Agent Walsh intercepted them. "I'm sorry, but Miss Martinez needs to come with us. It's for her own safety." Judge Martinez's face was stone. "I'm coming with my daughter." "Of course, Your Honor. We'll need statements from both of you anyway." As Isabella was led out of the church, still in her wedding dress, she saw the guests being processed by FBI agents. Some were in handcuffs. Others were giving statements. Her college roommate was crying. Marco's business partner was arguing with an agent. The florist was standing in shock, surrounded by scattered petals from bouquets dropped in the panic. The media had already arrived. News vans lined the street. Reporters shouted questions as Isabella was hustled into an unmarked FBI vehicle. Isabella, did you know Marco was in the Mafia? How long have you been together? Are you involved in his crimes? Inside the vehicle, Isabella felt numb. Agent Walsh sat across from her. I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to understand the seriousness of the situation. The Romano family doesn't take betrayal lightly. There are those who might think you know things, or that Marco told you secrets. We need to keep you safe until we can assess the threat level. I don't know anything, Isabella said, her voice barely a whisper. I thought he was just a businessman. I thought we were going to have a normal life. Children. A house by the beach. Sunday dinners with family. Agent Walsh's expression softened. I've seen this before. These men, they're very good at keeping their two lives separate. Marco genuinely seemed to want out of the family business. Our sources indicate he was trying to go fully legitimate, but once you're in that deep, it's nearly impossible to leave. The FBI safe house was a modest apartment in a building downtown. Isabella sat on a generic couch, still in her wedding dress, as agents set up security equipment. Her parents were in the kitchen, her mother making tea with shaking hands. Her father on the phone with his colleagues, trying to understand how he had missed the signs. Agent Walsh sat down beside Isabella with a box of tissues and a glass of water. I need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Marco. I know it's painful, but anything you can tell us might help. Isabella took a shaky breath. We met at the charity gala for the Children's Hospital. My parents organize it every year. He wrote a check for $50,000, said his company believed in giving back to the community. She laughed bitterly. I guess I know where that money really came from now. Tell me about his behavior. Did he ever seem paranoid? Did anyone ever approach you with warnings? Isabella thought back. There were. Little things. He always insisted on checking my car before I drove anywhere. Said he was just being protective. He hired a bodyguard for me, but called him a driver. I thought he was just being overprotective because he loved me. The bodyguard. What was his name? Salvador something. He was always very kind to me. Isabella's eyes widened. Oh God. Was he a criminal too? Salvador Torino. He's been arrested. He's a known enforcer for the Romano family. Isabella put her head in her hands. Her entire world had been a lie. Every person Marco had introduced her to, every dinner they'd shared, every moment of their relationship was tainted by deception. Her phone, sitting on the coffee table, began buzzing incessantly. Messages from friends, family, co-workers. The news had broken. Mob wedding raided by FBI. Judge's daughter. Engaged to Mafia prince. Construction mogul revealed as crime boss. End mob wedding. We'll need to go through your phones, computers, any communication devices, Agent Walsh said apologetically. It's standard procedure. Isabella nodded numbly. What did it matter now? Her privacy, her dignity, her future. All of it had been destroyed in a single moment when those cathedral doors burst open. As night fell over Miami, Isabella finally changed out of her wedding dress. Her mother had brought her some clothes from home. The dress hung on the back of the bedroom door like a ghost. A reminder of the life that almost was. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marco's face. Not the mugshot that was now plastered across every news channel, but the way he looked at her when she walked down the aisle. The love in his eyes had been real. She was certain of that. But how could she reconcile that with the monster the FBI described? Her phone had been returned after being analyzed. She scrolled through their text messages. Hundreds of I love yous and can't wait to spend my life with you. Pictures from their vacations. The video of his proposal. All of it felt like evidence of her own foolishness now. At 3 a.m, her phone rang. The number was blocked. Against her better judgment, she answered. Isabella. It was Marco's voice. She sat up, heart pounding. Marco, How are you calling me? Where are you? I don't have long. I need you to know something. Everything between us was real. I love you more than my own life. I tried to protect you from this world. I'm so sorry I failed. The FBI says you're a killer. That you're part of organized crime. Tell me it's not true. There was a long pause. I can't tell you that. But I can tell you that I was trying to get out. For you. For us. For the children we talked about having. Isabella was crying again. How could you do this to me? How could you let me fall in love with a lie? You didn't fall in love with a lie. You fell in love with the man I wanted to be. The man I was becoming. Isabella, listen to me. There are things happening now that I can't control. People who might come after you to get to me. Please. Do whatever the FBI tells you. Stay safe. Marco, But the line went dead. Isabella stared at the phone. Should she tell Agent Walsh about the call? But what if they traced it and caught Marco? Despite everything, she couldn't bear the thought of being the reason for his capture. She went to the window and looked out at the Miami skyline. Somewhere out there, the man she loved was a fugitive. The wedding guests were probably still being questioned. Her parents' reputation was in ruins. Her own career as a newly graduated lawyer was likely over before it began. Who would hire the woman who almost married a mob boss? The safe house bedroom was small and impersonal. Nothing like the beautiful home she and Marco had picked out together, where they were supposed to start their married life. He had let her choose everything. The color of the walls, the furniture, the garden design. Whatever makes you happy, he always said. Now she wondered if that house, too, had been bought with blood money. Every gift he'd given her, every romantic gesture, was tainted. The engagement ring on her finger, she couldn't bring herself to take it off yet, felt heavy with the weight of its origins. Morning came too soon. Agent Walsh arrived with coffee and a grim expression. We've had some developments overnight. Vincent Romano has put out word that he wants to meet with you. Isabella's blood ran cold. The head of the crime family wants to meet with me? He claims you have something that belongs to him. Do you have any idea what he might be talking about? Isabella shook her head. I don't have anything. Marco never gave me anything unusual. Agent Walsh studied her carefully. Think, Isabella. Any documents? Keys? Maybe something you didn't realize was important? Isabella mentally catalogued everything Marco had ever given her. Jewelry, clothes, books, the engagement ring. Then she remembered. There was a safety deposit box key. Marco gave it to me last month. Said it was for important papers. Insurance documents for after we were married. I put it in my jewelry box and forgot about it. Agent Walsh's eyes lit up. Where is this key now? At my apartment. In my jewelry box. Like I said. Within an hour, FBI agents had retrieved the key. Isabella watched as they prepared to investigate what the safety deposit box contained. Part of her hoped it would be evidence that could help Marco, proof that he was trying to leave the criminal life. Another part feared what secrets it might reveal. The news coverage was relentless. Isabella saw her own face on every channel, analyzed by experts who didn't know her. She had to have known, one criminologist argued. You don't date someone for 3 years without suspecting something. But Isabella truly hadn't known. Or had she? Now every moment was being re-examined. The way certain conversations would stop when she entered a room. The men with hard eyes who sometimes came to Marco's office. The way he always paid in cash at restaurants. Signs she had dismissed or explained away. Her best friend Sophia was allowed to visit, under FBI supervision. They sat in the safe house living room, Sophia holding Isabella's hand. I can't believe this is happening, Sophia said. He seemed so perfect for you. We all loved him. I know, Isabella whispered. I loved him too. I still love him. How is that possible? How can I still love someone who lied to me about everything? Not everything, Sophia said gently. The way he looked at you was real. Everyone could see it. Maybe he was trying to protect you by keeping you out of that world. Agent Walsh interrupted their conversation. Isabella, We need to talk about the safety deposit box. Isabella steeled herself for more bad news. What was in it? Documents. Financial records that detail the Romano family's operations going back 20 years. And this. Agent Walsh placed a letter on the table. Marco's handwriting clear on the envelope. It's addressed to you. With trembling hands, Isabella opened the letter. My dearest Isabella, if you're reading this, then something has happened to me, and the truth has come out. I pray that you never have to read these words, but I need you to know the truth from me. Not from FBI files or news reports. I was born into a world I didn't choose. My father was Vincent Romano's brother. When my parents died, I was 8 years old, and Vincent took me in. He raised me to be part of the family business. By the time I understood what that meant, I was already in too deep. I did things I'm not proud of, things that haunt me. But then I met you, and everything changed. You showed me that there could be another way. I started trying to distance myself from the family operations, to make my construction business truly legitimate. Vincent wasn't happy, but I thought I could manage it. I should have walked away from you the moment I realized I was falling in love. But I was selfish. I wanted the life you represented, clean, honest, full of love and laughter instead of fear and violence. I convinced myself I could have both. I was wrong. The documents in this box are my insurance policy. They detail every crime, every payoff, every murder the Romano family has committed. I gathered them hoping to trade them for a new life with you in witness protection. I was days away from contacting the FBI when you're reading this. I know you'll hate me for the lies. I know you'll question every moment we shared. But please believe this. My love for you was the only pure thing in my life. You made me want to be better. You made me believe I could be better. Whatever happens, please stay safe. Vincent will see my keeping these records as a betrayal. He might come after you thinking you know more than you do. Trust the FBI. Let them protect you. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused. I'm sorry for the life I've stolen from you. But I'm not sorry for loving you. That was the one thing I did right. Forever yours, Marco. Isabella read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Agent Walsh watched her carefully. These documents are a gold mine, Walsh said. With this evidence, we can take down the entire Romano organization. Marco was building a case without even knowing it. He was trying to get out, Isabella said. He was trying to choose me over them. It appears so. This changes things, Isabella. With Marco cooperating, even unknowingly through these documents, you're in even more danger. Vincent Romano won't forgive this betrayal. Days passed in a blur. Isabella was moved to a new safe house when surveillance indicated the first one might have been compromised. She testified before a grand jury, sharing every detail of her relationship with Marco, helping the FBI understand the timeline of his attempted exit from organized crime. Marco was being held without bail. His lawyer had reached out to Isabella's father, trying to arrange a meeting, but the FBI advised against it. The Romano family was in chaos, with Vincent ordering hits on anyone he suspected of cooperating with the authorities. Isabella's life as she knew it was over. Her apartment had been ransacked by unknown intruders looking for something. Whether it was the Romano family or rivals taking advantage of the chaos, no one knew. Her parents had received death threats and were also under FBI protection. The Children's Hospital charity had returned Marco's donations, not wanting to be associated with mob money. But in the midst of the destruction, something unexpected happened. Other victims of the Romano family began reaching out to Isabella. Widows whose husbands had been killed for refusing to pay protection money. Business owners who had lost everything to the family's extortion. They formed an unlikely support group, bound by their shared pain. One widow, Maria Castellano, became particularly close to Isabella. Her husband had been killed 5 years ago for refusing to sell his restaurant to the Romanos. I know you loved him, Maria said during one of their meetings. And that makes it harder. My husband was innocent. You have to grieve both the man you loved and the man he really was. Isabella found strength in these connections. She began working with the FBI. using her legal training to help build cases against the Romano organization. It was a way to find meaning in the chaos, to try to make something good come from the destruction of her dreams. 3 months after the wedding raid, Vincent Romano was arrested in a dramatic takedown at his compound. The evidence from Marco's safety deposit box had been crucial. The entire Romano organization was crumbling, with members either arrested or turning state's evidence to save themselves. Isabella was allowed to attend one of the trial proceedings, watching from a secure room as Marco testified against his uncle. He looked different, thinner, older, wearing a prison jumpsuit instead of the designer suits she was used to seeing him in. But when he spoke about trying to leave the life for her, his voice broke, and she saw the man she had fallen in love with. The trials would take years. Marco was offered a deal for his cooperation, 25 years, instead of life. It was still a lifetime away from Isabella. She had to rebuild her life without him, knowing he was paying for his crimes while she tried to heal from the collateral damage. She returned to law school, despite the whispers and stares. Her professors were supportive, and she threw herself into her studies. She specialized in victims' rights, driven by her experience and the stories of those the Romano family had hurt. Her parents' marriage survived the scrutiny and scandal. If anything, it made them stronger. Judge Martinez used his influence to push for stronger RICO statutes. Carmen Martinez expanded her charity work to include families affected by organized crime. On what would have been her first wedding anniversary, Isabella received a letter from Marco in prison. She debated whether to read it for hours before finally opening it. Isabella, I have no right to write to you, I know that. But I wanted you to know that I think of you every day. Not with hope. I know there's no future for us. But with gratitude. You showed me what love really was. You made me want to be better. Even if I failed, I hope you found peace. I hope you found happiness. I hope someday you'll find someone worthy of you. Someone who can give you the life you deserve without lies or danger. Thank you for loving me. It was more than I deserved. Marco. Isabella didn't reply, but she kept the letter. Years passed. Isabella became a successful prosecutor, specializing in organized crime cases. She never forgot the lessons learned from her own experience, that criminals could love, that victims needed support, that justice was more complex than she had ever imagined as a young law student planning her wedding. She eventually found love again with David, a fellow prosecutor who understood her past and didn't judge her for it. Their wedding was small, intimate, nothing like the grand affair she had planned with Marco. It was perfect in its simplicity and honesty. Sometimes, usually late at night when she couldn't sleep, Isabella would think about that day in the cathedral, the moment when her perfect life shattered like stained glass. She no longer felt the sharp pain of betrayal, just a sad acknowledgement of what had been and what might have been. The Romano crime family was history, its members dead or in prison. The construction company Marco had built was liquidated, its assets distributed to the family's victims. The beautiful house they had chosen together was sold to a young family who had no idea of its history. Isabella kept one thing from her relationship with Marco, not the engagement ring, which had been sold to pay for the victims' fund, but a photo from their trip to Paris. They stood in front of the Eiffel Tower, both laughing at something the photographer had said. It reminded her that even in the midst of lies, there had been moments of truth. She became a speaker at law enforcement conferences, sharing her story to help others understand how someone could be blind to their partner's criminal activities. She advocated for better support systems for the families of criminals, understanding that they too were victims in their own way. Love makes us vulnerable, she would tell her audiences. It makes us want to believe the best in people. That's not a weakness. It's what makes us human, but we must balance that trust with awareness, that hope with wisdom. 20 years later, Isabella stood in the same cathedral where her wedding had been raided. She was there for her goddaughter's baptism, Sophia's baby girl, named Grace. The church had been renovated, the memories of that chaotic day seemingly washed away by time and fresh paint. But Isabella remembered. She remembered the joy she had felt walking down that aisle. She remembered the horror when the doors burst open. She remembered Marco's face as he was led away. Most of all, she remembered the lesson learned, that love and evil could coexist in the same person, that truth was more complex than any fairy tale, and that sometimes the greatest courage was in rebuilding after everything fell apart. As she held baby Grace, Isabella whispered a prayer. Not for a perfect life. She knew better now. But for strength to face whatever truth life would bring. The scars from her wedding day would always be there, but they had made her who she was. A fighter for justice. A voice for victims. And a woman who had learned that real love meant seeing someone's darkness and choosing to walk toward the light. The bells of St. Augustine's Cathedral rang out. No longer a sound that brought her pain, but a reminder that life goes on, that new beginnings are possible, and that even the worst day of your life can eventually lead to purpose and peace. Outside the cathedral, life in Miami continued. The crime families had been replaced by new threats. The FBI had new cases, and young couples still planned weddings with dreams of perfect futures. But Isabella knew the truth now, that perfection was an illusion, that love required courage, and that sometimes the best stories were the ones that didn't go according to plan. She had entered that cathedral as a naive bride. She had left it as a survivor. And in the end, that transformation, painful as it was, had led her to a life of meaning she never could have imagined when she stood at that altar in white. Believing in fairy tales and forever, the little girl in her arms gurgled happily, and Isabella smiled. Life went on, love endured, and the truth, no matter how painful, had ultimately set her free.